Hey everyone, welcome to the Happy Hour Chat. This is our first ever Happy Hour Chat, and out of necessity through boredom, I think we're all kind of stuck in the same situation here. I thought it'd be a good idea to kind of put together an interview with different clients of mine, friends, people that are successful in their industries, to just sort of learn more about people. And actually our first guest today is a client of mine. Maybe backtrack here, give you a little bit of background on myself. My name is Ken McDonald. I'm owner and operator of Lifetime Performance. We are a golf and tennis fitness training facility right here in Palm Beach Gardens. And like I said, I met our first guest, Anirban Lahiri, back, what is it, maybe about 3-4 years ago? Four years ago, after he was rehabbing a shoulder injury. We had a physical therapy clinic right adjacent to our fitness studio. And once he finished the rehab, we started working out. And we've kind of been friends, good friends, I'd say, ever since. So you were the first guy, man, I was thinking of to give you a call to do this interview. And, I just want to give to the listener a little bit of background on yourself. You were born in Pune, India. Is that correct? I pronounced that right?
Pune. Yeah, in Pune.
Okay, of course.
Yeah.
Well, American.
It's all good.
Currently,
I've heard worse.
You're currently playing on that's true. You're currently playing on the PGA Tour. You turned pro in 2007, and you got 18 pro wins. 2 of them were European Tour wins. You got 7 Asian Tour wins. Member of the 2015 and 2017 President's Cup team. I could probably keep going, but that's the main stuff I got on you. So this is a happy hour chat, but it is 7 a.m. here in Gardens, and I think are you in Bangalore right now?
No, I'm in Hyderabad at my parents' place. That's where we decided to isolate ourselves because we knew it was coming, and I'll tell you more about it when we get to it.
Right, awesome. So actually it's a good lead in. I wanted to just kind of wondering how the virus is affecting the city over there and what you guys had to do and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think we've been lucky so far. Well, I think we're lucky because the numbers aren't quite as scary as they are right now in the US and how it is in Europe. But again, we've had limited testing and then some of the similar limitations as to what America experienced in the first couple of weeks. I think we're just entering week 3. Mm-hmm. So we're also entering stage 3, which is communal transmission. Right. So I think, in view of that and expecting, how the virus can kind of explode in this stage, the government has kind of really taken some very bold steps. I'm quite glad that they have. As of last night, every single airport in the country has been shut down. Every flight, every bus, every train's been shut down. I think 19 out of 27 of our states have closed their borders, so you can't even drive across.
Right.
Or I think, like I said, every single one of those states are in lockdown. Only essential industries, medicines, your pharmacies, your grocery stores, ATMs, those are the kind of things that are still open and functioning. Mm-hmm. One of the additional things that they brought in is they actually are trying to legally enforce a new regulation that only one family member can leave home at a time and only to get essential supplies. So they're really taking some very bold steps. I forgot to mention they closed all international travel 3 days ago for a week, and I think that's going to get extended. So so we're in super lockdown, not just in the sense of the superficial meaning of the word. Right. It's pretty serious, and that's my 1-year-old banging on the door.
Yeah, I had to escape into our guest bedroom because our 9-month-old is current life. Daddy daycare going on.
No lockdown from this monkey. Yes.
Are you able to? Are you practicing? Is there any golf courses you can go to at this time, or no? Everything's shut?
Everything's shut right now.
Hey, Tissia.
Everything's shut right now except for what this monkey wants to do. So we're in lockdown with this beast.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you guys are behind us a little bit. We had, that communal problem started maybe a couple of weeks, probably about 10 days ago or so. So we're kind of, every state's a little different over here. We are currently kind of a lockdown as well, but not officially. So I thought, let's maybe get off that topic. The news is pretty depressing these days. I always,
I mean,
we're working with a lot of the professional golfers we work with and tennis players. I'm always interested in how you guys grew up. So I was kind of curious as to, like, who was most influential in teaching the game and when you started to play, how old you were. Did you play other sports, that sort of thing?
yeah, so I grew up just like an average, Indian kid. My dad served in the armed forces. He was a doctor in the army, which means that we were moving every 3 years, different army bases. Grew up, schooling in 6 different schools. So I was never in one place for very long. But also because of that, I got exposed to golf, because golf is probably, I'd say, the number one pastime within the armed forces, the Navy, Air Force, and the military in times of peace.
Sure.
So that's how, I got introduced to the sport, because my dad used to go and play a little bit in the afternoon when I was a kid. I used to just kind of tag along. Basically, I started out as a 4 caddy for him. I used to go, tag balls for him to start, and then late evening, I'd chip and putt with him, and that's how I kind of got introduced to the game. I was probably 7 or 8 when that happened. I did go to a golf course when I was about 3, probably putted around back then, but I didn't really start playing the game till I was 7 or 8. And the love for the game grew from there. I grew up playing cricket like every Indian kid. I played a lot of soccer. Growing up, I played a lot of table tennis or ping pong. I played a bunch of different sports. I was always outdoorsy. That's something I think that was a big blessing of growing up as an army brat, is that there were always open spaces. There were always, grounds, and there was always other kids who were playing sport.
Sure.
In urban India now, it's a little difficult because it's pretty jam-packed and there's not as many open spaces. So I'm fortunate to have grown up in that environment. I think right around when I was about 11 or 12, I realized that, I'm good at golf. And I started practicing a little bit more. And then my dad took me to play a junior event. We used to have just the 4 zonals and the one All India Junior Championships. I'm talking about the late 90s. And I went out and I played one of them. And that was the first time I actually saw other kids my age play the sport. Because you got to remember, I grew up on all these bases, hanging out with dad and his friends, fellow officers who would play for fun. So I always grew up hanging out with these, 30, 40 odd year olds who love their game. So when I went out and I played the first junior event, I'm like, hey, this is a lot more fun when kids my age, play the game. And, it was different. I still remember my first event as a 11-year-old.
There's no gimmies though. There's no gimmies, when you're playing with dad.
Yeah.
Pick it up.
There's
4 or 5
gimmies.
feet. That's good.
There's no do-overs, no mulligans, and there's no, oh, it's all right, son, it's okay, And not just that, the first event I played in Calcutta, this is 1998, I was 11. That was the first time I ever saw a, non-preferred lie golf course. My whole life I played on these, army courses, which I'd say at best would be like an average municipal golf course in the States. So, I'm always looking at about 1.5 inches of grass under my ball when I'm on the fairway. Wow. So all of a sudden, I'm looking at this ball sitting flat on a piece of perfect turf, and I didn't know how to hit the golf ball. I was literally scared. I'm like, how do I hit this? This thing is sitting
not
down.
Sitting up.
Yeah, it's not teed up. Those are the kind of experiences growing up. But I think my dad was very influential in me taking to the sport. There was a lot of encouragement from him. You got to understand, out here, it works differently. This is, everybody is like education first. And to some extent, I get it because, that's what Indians do all over the world. We're pretty much the brains behind a lot of operations, regardless of where you go. My dad's a doctor, like I said. My mom's a professor. She's a Fulbright scholar. For me to go into sport was difficult for my family. So it was good to have that encouragement. And, after playing those events, I wanted to play more. I wanted to compete more, and I want to hang out with kids my age more.
Yeah.
So that's how it started. And I picked it up. I played a lot of junior events after that because I got to get out of school, which was a lot of fun. I got to travel.
So
I got to visit.
Did you pretty much were you like a self-taught player for the most part? Did you ever have any official lessons?
Oh, yeah. So it's funny because, when I think back to my childhood, I was, I don't know how you'd put it, I was very good at mimicking golf swings.
Yeah.
So if I see a golf swing, and that's what most kids are good at, they're so observant. And you see it with kids, the really young kids, is they can mimic really well. And that's what I used to do. I would see a golf swing and I tried to mimic it. And I tried to kind of swing like this guy or that guy. The other thing is my dad would go to all the military libraries and pull out these old, golf manuals and books and try and get photocopies of those. And then, we'd look at, positions and postures and grips and stances of, I'm talking about black and white photographs of books that were, published 50, 60 years ago. Names that a lot of people won't even be familiar with. I mean, outside of the legends, outside of the the Gary Players and the Jack Nicklaus's and Mr. Palmer's. I'm talking about Phil Galvano. I'm talking about other guys that my dad would, whoever he could find in the library. I mean, this is really limited stuff. So, we'd look at that and we'd kind of just, wing it. So I started playing like that, pretty much self-taught. And then I met my coach when I was 14 and a half. You know him personally, Vijay. He's still my coach to this day. We're pushing up on 17 years.
That's awesome. That's
working with him.
That often.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, he kind of tore my swing down without kind of taking away what I had instinctively or naturally learned by myself on how I swung a golf club. So he kind of saw that as an advantage or as as something that I could use going through my career. Because one thing that most kids do, even now, and more so now than, in my time, is they hit it miles. Mm-hmm. And, when I was 13, 14, I was an early, boomer in the sense that I was 5'9" when I was in 9th grade. And I was, back of the class in terms of the line, when you would stand in order of height. And I'm still 5'9". So, so I was a big 14-year-old. And again, we're talking about Indian standards here. I'm still the tallest in the family. The average height out here is like 5'7", maybe 5'6.5". Okay. So I used to hit it really far as a kid. And then he kind of kept some of that, and then he built my golf swing, got my fundamentals a little more solid. Right. And I mean, to this date, we're pretty much still working on the fundamentals because, playing golf is different from swinging a club, which is something that I learned as I played more of it. Yeah, that's great. I like that. So you bypassed college. You decided not to go play college golf. You turned pro. Yeah. What was that decision like? Was that an easy decision at the time? Yeah, it was really easy. Like I mentioned, my dad coming from a services background. Mm-hmm. I wasn't a spectacular junior. I was always like 4th, 5th, 3rd, 4th, 5th in the country. I know it sounds like a big deal, but it wasn't because there weren't a lot of us. I mean, to give you a sense, I mean, there was probably 50 kids or 60 kids who played on the national circuit in my age group. So, if you wanted to get a full ride to any of the, Division I colleges, you needed to be number 1 or at worst number 2 who had done well internationally. Now, I wasn't one of those kids, but I was good enough to, get a partial ride. But there were two aspects that were pretty easy for me. One was it was just outright unaffordable. Coming from a salaried background, there's no way we could afford it. One. And the other thing was, like I said, I started working with my coach when I was 14. And by the time I got to 17, when I had to make this decision, my golf actually really started getting good. Because, like I mentioned, we tore the swing down, we built it back up. That takes time. So, all of 15, 16, those 2 years was pretty much the foundation laying stage. There weren't a lot of results. But then I really started kicking into gear when I got to 17. So I'm like, hey, here's a coach who I like working with, who's helping me, and I'm improving.
Mm-hmm.
So if I keep improving and, I don't have to stress my parents out, I don't really need to go to the US. And the other thing was, I don't know if I was going to be able to adjust to the culture and the work ethic there, because I had met a few people who said that, look, you're on your own. You got to do a lot of your own stuff. There's going to be no hand holding. No one's going to, kind of guide you through this. You're
Right.
going to get dropped in the deep end. You've got to swim. So I was like, you know what? I've got a good thing going here. So it just didn't make sense. I did go to college.
Uh-huh.
I did go to college
Okay.
out here in India. I did get my degree, but I decided to stay back because that seemed at the time to be the right decision, and I think it was.
How old were you when you did turn pro?
I was 20. The plan was always to turn pro after I graduated. So in India, if you don't do a professional course, like if you're not doing architecture or medicine or engineering, then most degrees are 3 years and not 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
So in America, pretty much every basic course in a college is 4 years. Here is 3 years. So the idea was for me to turn pro at 21, which is just straight after I would have graduated. But right around 19, I started playing really well. My game kind of shifted to the next gear. My scoring average went into the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was like, okay, now if I don't turn pro now, then I'm going to go backwards, because I was winning tournaments pretty comfortably and I didn't feel pushed. So we decided to kind of move that date up. And I turned pro when I was 20. And the funny thing is I actually took 3 months off professional golf to give my collegiate exams and actually make sure that I did get my degree. So I took 3 months off of golf in early 2008, which is when I wrote my final exams for my graduation, and then I went back to playing golf.
Kind of hey man, you got to do what you got to do, and I think that's you're probably happy.
Well, not having an education is just not an option here.
Right.
It's just not. Like I said, when you have a doctor and a professor in your family, if you're not even a graduate, damn, you're worse than a black sheep.
Right. Well, let's fast track a little bit. 2012, you qualified for your first major at the British Open Royal Lytham, I think. What was that like? I mean, you've been a pro now for a little while, but that had to have been. I'm sure you had some nerves, maybe some excitement, all kinds of stuff. What was that like?
Yeah, I think it was incredible. Back then, we used to have regional qualifying quite a lot, like the US Open. So I qualified in Thailand. We had a 36-hole shootout and 4 guys got in. I won that. And straight after that, I came back and I told my coach, I'm like, I can't believe it. I just, I'm going to play a major. I never thought this would ever be possible. So we immediately got in touch with the RNA and planned a trip to Lytham and St. Anne's to go and prepare. So my coach and I, we flew down literally like 50 days before the tournament was going to be held. And they were going to close the golf course 45 days before. So I literally got there 3 days before they closed the course. My coach drove me all the way to Lytham St. Anne's from London. I was I was pretty young and naive, and I had no idea. I never traveled west. I played most of my golf in Asia. So we went out there, we scoped it out, we came back, and we would literally, wait for the wind to pick up. And then we'd go to the corner of the range where it would be into the wind, and we just hit shots into the wind. We changed our technique. I changed some of my clubs. So we really prepped very, very intensely for it. And it was incredible. I had my dad there with me, and I made the cut. I think I played pretty decent. I had a hole-in-one on Saturday on the ninth hole, and I think I finished 30th, 31st or something like that in my first major. So it was, yeah, I mean, it was pretty incredible. I'll never forget that first round. I was slated to tee off at 4:20 p.m. or something. You know, those are the times all the
Right.
qualifiers get, you know, first out or last out.
Mm-hmm.
And I played out of my skin. Had one of the best putting rounds ever. I went bogey free in my first round in a major. I shot 1 under bogey free, made everything. And when we finished up, there was no food because all the restaurants had shut at 8 o'clock. And
They know you're still out there?
So we literally had to go find a hole in the wall fish and chips joint that was still open just to throw some food into the gullet.
It's stuff like that you won't forget. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, but it was I slept well that night.
Right. So, you know, obviously you won a lot of times and won a few times in European Tour, Asian Tour wins, Order of Merit winner, all that stuff. What would you say, like, if you look back and you're like, okay, that is really what I'm most proud of. That is the achievement I thought that I might not ever really have, or at least I've worked so hard to achieve this moment. What would you say that is?
It's difficult for me to put a finger on it. I think every time I've kind of identified something, you know, as time passes, something else comes up in your career that, you know, you shift your focus towards. I think in terms of, you know, memorable moment or something that I cherish is definitely winning my national open, the Indian Open in 2015. That was the first pro event. My father actually took me out to watch as a 10-year-old. And I watched Arjun Atwal win it in Royal Calcutta Golf Club way back. I'm talking about 1997.
Yeah.
So, you know, so that was the first event I ever saw. And then I won it in 2015. I came from 7 shots back on Sunday to force a playoff. And won in the playoff, and I had Arjun sitting not sitting, he was in the marquee behind the 18th green, and he watched me win 18 years later. So that was pretty special.
Yeah,
you know,
that's pretty great.
When we meet, we still talk about it every now and then. So yeah, but there's lots of good stuff. Lots of good stuff.
So you eventually qualified for the PGA Tour through the Web Finals in 2015. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and then you moved to the United States from India. Obviously, that's a big culture difference. How was it adjusting to life over here, kind of based on what you were used to?
Like you said, and you know, you've known me most of that period that I've been in the States. It was very different. I think the good thing that my wife and I did is 2015 when I played extensively in the U.S. On my partial exemption. We both traveled in the States together. We kind of got a sense of how the tour works, got a sense of how, you know, the travel works. It's a very different dynamic from playing on any other tour in many different ways. It's a lot more independent. It's a lot more, you know, you're an independent contractor in every which way.
Right.
So also getting used to the rhythm, you know, you get to a place, you get your car, you drive yourself, which is something that I didn't do in the first, you know, 8-9 years of me being pro, because you always got driven to the official hotel. There was always official bus. So getting used to that stuff, getting used to the food, the culture, the weather, the grasses in terms of playing golf, lots of adjustments. So when we actually decided to move in 2016, we were kind of prepared. We kind of knew what we were getting into because we'd just done about 8 to 10 weeks of that the year before. Right. So to that extent, you know, having that experience made it a little smoother or easier, but it was a completely different animal once you actually live there. You know, now we have a home there, right by where you live.
Yeah, almost in the neighborhood.
Yeah, and you know, we have a life there, and it's been fascinating actually for us to also adapt to a new life. But it's been fun. It's been a great journey.
Right, that's awesome. Well, we'll get back to golf. Let's shift gears kind of a little bit here and get into a little bit more of what I do in our relationship. I was kind of, you know, I'm always curious what your take on golf fitness is, because I see so many different approaches by, you know, various trainers in the industry with regards to how they put together programs, exercise selection, what they deem is important for golf. And I just kind of wanted your opinion. I think yours is a little bit different. I was kind of curious into your opinion as to really the role strength and conditioning plays in golf, and I guess how it's important for you.
I think my understanding of golf fitness has also undergone, a lot of change over the last, I'd say, decade or so.
Mm-hmm.
I think growing up in my time in India, late 90s, mid 2000s, when I was a kid, golf fitness wasn't really a thing. Let's put it that way. But what I was lucky or fortunate, to have experienced was that my dad would love to exercise. So, I would hit the gym as a 14, 15-year-old, and I would be doing weights, and I'd be, really getting a lot stronger. And like I said, I was an early, boomer in terms of my growth spurt. So by the time I was 15, I was kind of ready to start. I started shaving when I was 15.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was like ready to go to the gym and do stuff like that. And all my friends were like, what are you doing? You're going to stunt your growth. And there were all these superstitions about working out here. So I started doing that, and that kind of laid the foundation for me, thanks to my dad and taking me to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, growing up, it was always about being golf fit, in the sense that if I want to hit so many golf balls in 100 degrees, which it is out here, 8 months in a year, and still go out and play and be able to maintain my focus and be able to maintain my intensity, that's fitness for me. Mm-hmm. So that was the whole concept of being golf fit. Can I do what I need to do for my golf? If I can, I'm fit to play golf.
Right.
Now, that took a complete, change after I got to the US. Because even while I was playing in Asia and a little bit in Europe, it was still evolving. Golf fitness was evolving. TPI kind of came about, about 8, 9, I don't even know, 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And then that became like the new norm that, okay, this is what you need to do and this is what they say, and you need to have this kind of mobility and you have this kind of stability. And I was like, look, I'm hypermobile. You know that because you've trained me. I know that because I've had multiple dislocations in places that you shouldn't. Mm-hmm. But that also makes me super unstable. But that also gives me the edge to kind of be able to swing the way I do.
Correct.
So, everybody's bodies, at least us guys who play it seriously, competitively, professionally, because we've played so much golf, all our bodies have certain advantages and there will always be certain disadvantages. So the part that I always kind of stayed away from was, why do I have to conform to a school of thought? Why should I have to do this or this? My body is different from that guy, is different from that guy. My swing is different from this guy and that guy. So, I kind of stayed away from that stuff. But then also after working with you and also seeing how that, golf fitness evolved further, I started saying, okay, so these are my strengths, but how do I make my weaknesses more stable, or can I turn my weaknesses into strengths? How do I prevent injury? Because I started, I've had a couple of injuries. My first one was when just before I met you, when I got hurt, just before the Olympics at the British Open at Troon. So, so then after you go through that, you suddenly get injured and you go, oh shit, maybe I need to work on my, there's something to it that maybe I have ignored or I need to look at.
Sure.
So right now, we've been injury free for a while. Mm-hmm. All the work we've put in kind of stabilized my shoulder, which was troubling me. We're working on my hip. As I found out, I have FAI that allows me to do certain things and doesn't allow me to do certain things. So also learning more about your body. I think golf fitness for me, you got to learn about your body first and then correlate that to your golf swing. And then from that point, you kind of see, okay, where do I fit into this equation?
Right.
And what parts do I take from that equation that work for me? I think if you were to just follow a standard template, then you're going to do your body and your golf swing disservice. But obviously, times have changed. You see the kids coming out of college, everybody is swinging at 120 plus miles an hour. So there is definitely a lot of credence to speed training, which has become more and more and more and more essential.
Right.
So that's obviously something that you and I have also shifted our focus to kind of stay relevant, because it's going to be important. So there's so much going on.
That's a great answer, man. I think what TPI did really well back in the day is they made that connection between the golf swing and the body. And essentially what your body can and cannot do is going to be indicative in what shows up in your golf swing. And with your body in particular, you have elements of hypermobility, but then other areas that are very stiff and restricted. So
Correct.
that's, I think, where the importance of an evaluation comes in, to be able to identify those areas and then put together a program that sort of speaks to that, but also the golf swing. And in my industry, I'm constantly bombarded with different programs from other trainers and exercises on social media, and it's kind of like, am I doing the right thing, that sort of thing. So it's always sort of measuring that risk reward. And I mean, you guys as PGA Tour players, in my mind, are in it for the long haul. You've got potentially senior tour careers. So I'm constantly weighing that risk reward. Is it worthwhile to go after that heavy deadlift, that heavy back squat? Yes, it might create some, better platform for power and speed. But is it in the long run going to maybe potentially do a little bit more damage to some of the joints in the body and wear them down a little bit quicker than they should? So it's always that kind of, back and forth. I think that's why we've worked well together. You have a good understanding of fitness and
yeah, but like you rightly said there, Ken. I mean, I've just come back to India. I'm here, obviously, and I just spent the last couple of weeks with some kids at the academy before this whole situation kind of kicked in. And the issue is there's a lot of really good programs, golf-based fitness and exercise programs, but there's not a lot of good evaluations.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm looking at someone, because from my experience, I can tell, okay, this guy is able to do this, but he's unable to do that. And I'm telling him that, oh, look, he comes to me and says, oh, my mid-back's really tight. And, should I just ice it? I'm like, no, you don't need to ice your mid-back because it's tight. Right. Show me where you're tight. And he kind of points to where the bottom of the ribs are. I'm like, hang on, that's not your back. Mm-hmm. That's coming from your diaphragm, or that's coming from your rectus abdominis, which is your front, and your core is tight. Mm-hmm. So unless you release your core, the symptom in your back's not going to disappear. Now, then he tells me, oh, I did this in the gym and I did that in the gym. I'm like, look, hang on, you shouldn't be doing this. Mm-hmm. I know it's a part of the golf program and it's really effective by and large, but this may not be the right thing for you to do.
Right.
And this kid's 15 years old. He's 6 feet 2 inches tall.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, you are still growing and you need to work on your stability right now, because all your limbs are growing out, and your ability, your motor coordination is still not going to be that good till you actually finish your growth spurt. So the thing is, he's not been evaluated correctly to understand that, maybe he should not be doing that. Maybe he should be doing this. He shouldn't be doing RDLs for sure. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And that's what he was doing when he pulled his lat. And then I'm like, so, it's like you said, it's having good evaluations is basically the first point from which you design a program. And I think that's why I enjoy working with you, because you always start from that point. So regardless of, which school of exercise you want to follow, or, what you prescribe to, whether it's, plyometrics or body weight, or, doing a lot of lifting, or doing, TRX heavy stuff, or whatever it is. Unless you start from a place of a good evaluation and understand how you're going to build X up and how you're going to stabilize Y, it's still going to lead to a lot of injuries, because 99%, I'd say 95% of the injuries on tour come from the gym.
Yeah.
Wow. And 95% of the injuries outside of the tour are also coming from the gym, because kids start working on their bodies early, which is a great thing. Yeah. But if we have such a high injury rate coming, where the causation is from working out, there's obviously a serious lack of doing correct, accurate evaluations, or of actually having the right kind of supervision. Right. So the risk you run from looking at something online and doing that program because this Francesco is doing it, or Tiger's doing it, or so and so is doing it, or XYZ is doing it, is that you don't understand what their bodies do and how they function. Even though you want to play golf like them, I get it, but you're more likely to hurt yourself if you don't know what your body can do. So I think that's, for me, is what I learned from being here, is that unless you have a good evaluation, even the best designed program could hurt you.
Yeah, That's great, man. I appreciate that input. That's very true. Sorry for the geek out, but I think that was what we both like to talk about, especially me. And
Yeah.
obviously you have a big interest in it. So getting back to golf a little bit, last year you had to go back to Korn Ferry Finals. And so I
Right.
was kind of curious, and I think people want to know, is that when you're faced with that kind of situation, is there a feeling of, or a sense of urgency with that? Or is it more like, this is just another tournament, I feel really confident, no problem?
No, no, no. I mean, whoever tells you it's just another tournament and I feel really confident is lying through their teeth.
Okay.
It's never like that. It's never like that.
Yeah.
Anyone who's been at Q school, anyone who's been, at a stage where your entire year depends on it, or your, ability to ply your trade, which is what we do, depends on it. It's different. You have to kind of switch modes. And it was the same for me. It was, I've had a couple of bad years for whatever reasons, but the thing is, when you get to that situation, you have to do whatever it takes. So, for me, I kind of really cocooned myself. Like I just told you, like you just saw, I've got a 1-year-old. She was all of 4 or 5 months old. But I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go out there, travel by myself. I told my wife, I'm probably gonna speak to you once a day for 5 minutes, and that's it, because I need to almost cut everything else out and just go into a shell, sort of, which is what works for me. I'm not saying this is what everyone should do, but you got to deal with the situation however you can. So whatever helps you focus more or raise your level of awareness, or intensity, you need to do that. So I had to switch a few things out and kind of do what I needed to. And, fortunately for me, I was able to, turn up my golf back to a level where it should be all the time, to be honest. And it's difficult, man. Anyone who tells you that it's not is lying. But it's also why we do what we do. It's what gets the juices flowing. That's what excites us. You want to get into those situations where you've got a gun to your head and come out strong. And these kind of experiences also kind of build you up for the challenges that are going to come afterwards. If you think getting your cards the hardest part, think again. That's just step one. Then you got to up your level even further, because now you're playing, in the big leagues, which I have been now over a decade. So I kind of know what's out there. So I know that this isn't the final frontier. I think one of the things that freaks a lot of people out at Q schools and web finals is that, oh my God, this is my last hurdle, this is my final. It's not. To be honest, if that's how you're going to approach it, then once you get through, you're going to struggle to play golf on tour, because you already think you've achieved what you were trying to achieve. You haven't. This is just, one of the hurdles, but now this is the real challenge. You got to compete on tour. You got to try and win on tour. Those are the things you got to do. So, yeah, I think it helps to have that experience. It helped that I had, been in the Korn Ferry Finals in 2015.
Right.
I knew that I could do it. I knew that I could get through it, and I think that really helped too. But yeah, it's not easy, and I'm glad that's behind me. And hopefully, I can continue to play at a level that I know I can for a long, long time.
Yeah. Well, being put in those situations can build character and kind of armor in a way. And I think you can take what you learned last year and how well you did in web finals and take that as a positive too. That when you need to play well, you did. That's what I was most impressed about. Okay. So I kind of had some other questions I thought maybe the listeners might like to hear. Best shot you've ever hit. Best shot you've ever hit. Situation, club.
Yeah, it'll be hard to give a very accurate kind of build up to this, but this is going back a while. This is probably going back to I can't even remember which year it was. I'll tell you when it was. It was the first Eurasia Cup. We didn't even play it this year. Europe versus Asia, similar to the President's Cup format. And I was playing the Sunday singles. We were trailing Europe by a whole bunch of points. Obviously, we were outgunned. and I was playing against Shane Lowry at the time. I think this was 2014 or 2016. I think it was 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And no, I was not playing against Shane Lowry. That was the next year. I was playing against Victor Dubuisson, who had just come off finishing runner-up to Jason Day in the World Match Play 3 weeks prior. So I was playing Victor on the Sunday, and everybody expected him to pull through. Obviously, he's quite an artist. And we were playing in Malaysia as the 16th hole is a par 5. We were all square with 3 to go. And I hit my tee shot down this right side of the fairway. And if you can imagine, there was like a jungle on the right, really tall trees, like 100 to 150 feet high trees. The pin stuck all the way right corner. I had like 255 to the stick, and I was first to go. And I hit probably the best 5-wood that I've ever hit in my life, like a hard, flat cut around the trees to about 6 feet for eagle. Wow. And I was like the third to final match out on the golf course, and we needed my match and one more match to actually win the event after being 4 points back. And long story short, that kind of rattled Victor a little bit, and I won that hole, and I made 20-footer on 17 to win my match. But I still remember how hard my heart was pounding, because this was like a super high risk shot given the situation. But I still remember that shot.
That's great, man. That's great. Okay, so what's the strangest or most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you in an event? What can we talk about here?
Oh boy, I gotta pull out the PG stuff. I think what was kind of embarrassing, and I see that on film now, is when I won my first European Tour event, the Malaysian Open. I was, I think, again, 4 back going into Sunday. Fast forward, I'm coming down the stretch, and I am 1 shot back, playing the 17th, and I just make this bomb from off the green. I make this 30-footer from the fringe, and I tie, and Bernd Wiesberger, who's leading, he bogeys 16, and now I'm 1 ahead. And I get to 18. It's what we now played the CIMB Classic the last few years, TPC-KL. And I've laid it up to a pretty comfy wedge number. I got 100 yards to the green, and it's a tucked pin. So I know that if I hit this tight, I'm pretty sure that at worst it's going to be a playoff. Mm-hmm. And I still remember I chunked that sand wedge so bad. It took 2 bounces before it went into the greenside bunker. And I'm just standing on the fairway saying, really, you've just played like out of your skin the last 27 holes. Because I just shot 10 under on the Saturday to put myself in contention. And I'm like, this is what you do on the 18th hole. It was pretty embarrassing. I was just
a shot you'll never forget, right?
Yeah, it was pretty embarrassing. Luckily for me, I got it up and down, and I still won by 1.
Wow, okay.
But
right.
I was
made up for it.
Just looking at the ground, like trying to jump into that divot and hide.
That's good. That's good. Well, that's good, man. How about your favorite tour stop? You most look forward to going?
On the PGA Tour, I think as a stop, it's got to be Memorial.
Yeah.
I think Jack's place is just super special. The way he takes care of all of us, the caddies, the milkshakes, the golf course, the crowds. I mean, it's pretty phenomenal. I think it's a special event, one that I really enjoy playing and going back to. It's been a privilege. I've played the last 4 years, and hopefully I'll play many, many years to come.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, I won't keep you any longer. Thank you so much for your time. That was great. I learned a lot. A couple things I didn't know in there. Where can people find out more about you? Instagram, you on social media?
Yeah, well, I'm you know me. I've been pretty social media dead between you and my wife. I'm trying to get a little more active.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get a little more active, especially in this downtime. So you'll probably see some interesting stuff coming out on social media soon. I'm working on some stuff. I don't want to.
You're on Twitter, right?
I am on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I don't want to give too much of a reveal. I'm on Facebook as well.
All right. Yeah, don't tell us.
And people can start by tuning into this episode with you, and I'll put more stuff
Awesome,
up
man.
as time comes.
Well, that's great, bro. Thank you so much again for your time. And I'm really hoping I do get to see you soon. I don't know how long this is going to be, but
Yeah.
hopefully not too long.
Everything's crossed, man. Fingers,
I know,
toes. We'll see where this goes.
Well, thanks, buddy. Have a good day.
Yeah,
We'll
always
talk to you soon, man. All right, take care.
Love to the family, man. Bye-bye. Take care.